Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Johnson. Thank you for joining us today. Before our presentation begins, here are a few housekeeping items. Everyone has been muted just to avoid technical issues. If you have, at any time you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will try to answer all of your questions live during the webinar. However, if we don't get to the questions, we will follow up with those questions after the webinar. At the end of the webinar, we will provide contact information if you'd like to reach out to us directly after today's session. Thank you. We will now begin. Well,
Good morning.
once again, welcome to Penn State Behrend's Rise and Shine webinar. Today we'll be featuring Innovation Commons. What's the buzz all about? My name is Dave Johnson. I'm the Associate Director of Development and Alumni Relations at Penn State Behrend and today's moderator. I'd like to welcome Mr. Jacob Marsh, Industry Relations Coordinator and Manager of Innovation Commons at Penn State Behrend. Jake earned a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry from Grove City College and spent several years studying genetics and virology at Penn State Hershey before changing careers and joining Behrend. He earned a master's degree in project management through Penn State World Campus and works to enhance opportunities for Behrend students to gain experience working on real-world projects with industry and increase their entrepreneurial mindset. Jake leads several programs at Behrend, including Innovation Commons, Matchbox, and the Energy University Partnership. Jake is also actively engaged with Erie's entrepreneurial ecosystem, regularly collaborating with other organizations to improve regional support for startups and innovations. And also a personal friend. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you, Dave, very much. Good morning, everyone, and very excited to be here today. And I hope that I can answer some questions for you. And I hope that I can tell you about something that's exciting that's going on in Erie at Behrend. I'm going to be talking today primarily about the Innovation Commons and sort of how it came about, what we do, the benefits that this program provides for students, for the community, for people like yourselves, for companies in the area as well. And this program really was born about 5 years ago with two kind of seed opportunities, two opportunities that really provided us somewhere to start. So simultaneously, Penn State and the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority provided opportunities that we could take advantage of to start something and experiment and do something new. Invent Penn State basically said, to all the Penn State campuses and colleges, find a way to help entrepreneurs, and we'll give you some seed money to start the process. And the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority at the same time was trying to was providing a fund for the universities in the area to work together on something that would spur economic development in the region. So we saw a nice pairing between these two opportunities. And a part of that large project was the Innovation Commons. And we decided at Behrend to build this and focus it on helping entrepreneurs in the region, companies in the region who want to try something new, and students. So we have various levels of engagement that companies and entrepreneurs can take advantage of at Behrend. So I have this little pyramid here, and we'll start at the top. And this is Innovation Commons space. It's very easy to engage with the Commons. I'll tell you more about that process in a couple minutes, but it's a start today, very low risk engagement. And stepping to a larger engagement level with the university, we have senior design projects with the engineering school, in which there's a 2-semester team of students working on a project. Then we have sponsored research, in which industry provides a budget, a scope of work that is appropriate for faculty leadership of a student team. And then, of course, we have Knowledge Park, which is our research and business park on the Penn State campus. And so companies or startups even can decide that they want to actually move in and co-locate with the university, giving the opportunity for students to do internships and projects just a stone's throw away from their work. So what does the Innovation Commons do? I haven't told you. What we do is product development and rapid prototyping. So over the years of operation that we've been years that we've been in operation, rather, we've developed a few services that have been particularly effective in helping people overcome barriers for product development. So if you're an entrepreneur or an inventor and you've got a great idea and you can sketch it out, but you don't have the engineering know-how to take that further, that's where we come in. So you meet with our students and scope out a project and start immediately. And our students will be able to do some of the things that are on your screen right now. So computer-aided drafting work, and including drawings for intellectual property applications if needed. We do a lot of 3D printing, laser cutting, electronics, and we're now doing app design. So just a preview, but put that in your head because we're really looking for app design projects that have a lot of potential. We're also very interested in helping industry learn more. And I'll tell you about one of the projects that we did that did this, but we can do tours of our space, of course, but we can also do design consultation for products or services. We can consult on Industry 4.0 areas of knowledge. And we've now, for our local schools, this has been less in demand, but we are able to take calls and even do visits to help with their projects in similar areas. So if they have 3D printers and they're broken, our students are experts and they'll go there and fix them. We have some unique capabilities. We can do large scale printing. We have a very large 3D printer that the students themselves designed and built from scratch. And we can do very high resolution printing. So if the part needs to be perfect that we're making, we can do that for you. We can do high resolution 3D scanning. So sometimes a part of a process is looking at a product that already exists and trying to figure out if it matches the drawings that were made of it, or trying to reproduce features of it. We can do that. And we can do a bunch of different materials. This is a pretty remarkable experience for students working in this space, doing these product development projects for companies and for entrepreneurs. So I want to focus a little bit on what they get out of it. So this is staffed entirely by undergraduates. We've had a graduate student in the past. I'll mention him in a moment. They are paid. This is an employed position, not for credit. That is money that comes out of grants and out of donations to the Innovation Commons. They get the chance to get progressive responsibility and knowledge. What I mean by that is over the course of years, they might go from knowing very little about the subject to being an expert on the cutting edge of this knowledge set, because they'd be able to work in this space for several years. They're also gaining soft skills because they have to work with a large number of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs have a very broad swath of society. So it's very different walks of life. So that introduces the student to speaking to anyone from just a citizen from the community to the CEO of a company. They're gaining engineering skills, obviously, working outside their own major. They will inevitably gain some project management skills and business skills because they have to work on multiple projects at the same time. They get good connections with companies that they're working with, potentially startups that they're working with as well that have resulted in positions before. And of course, they're getting some personal growth because a lot of what they do in this space, they have to teach themselves. This is an experience that some of which is taught in a classroom, but a lot of this is stuff that they have to go out and figure out how to do on their own or even learn how to do if no one's done it before, which happens. So in terms of service for the area, we have a very strong focus on this. So our intent is not just an educational experience, but a service to the community. So all of these services I mentioned before, there's no cost for those. That is not something that we charge for, including student time. We want to lower that barrier to product development as much as possible. We want to eliminate as many reasons for failure in a project or product as possible. We also do we also have a good focus on companies. So I mentioned entrepreneurs and lowering that barrier, but often a company will have something that they want to go into that they have no experience with, or that they have no capability to do. And in the case of the pandemic that we're living in right now, I'm sure anyone who's in a company right now would understand that resources are tight. So this offers opportunities to pursue something at such a low risk that it becomes a no-brainer. Sort of, they're going to help us with this for free. Let's do it. Community service. We've also, we do some contests and events. I'll tell more about how we're interacting with the community in a moment, but we're also providing service within the university naturally. Some of that's just solving problems that the university encounters, such as intellectual property, in the case of this kind of rapid development. But one of the things that I want to make a point of before I go on is we're very open-minded to projects. It's very, very rarely that we would just say, nope, we can't do that. We will 99% of the time say, let's talk about that, and we'll try to figure it out. So if you're a company and you're just kind of spitballing an idea around the room, we'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can do, and sometimes that has great results. So one other interesting thing, and I'm going to preface this by telling you that we are growing. Our service area has been traditionally isolated to Erie County specifically. We are going to be expanding now our service area for our services and the rest of the Beehive network, and keep that name in mind in a moment, to all of the counties that you see on this map, focusing first on the red ones and then moving into the orange. We've worked with several of these counties before, but we're now going to make a concerted effort to connect with those ecosystems that are in that area, those entrepreneurial ecosystems that are in those areas, to get projects and bring them in. That is a service that we think is very important to this region of the state and of the United States. And what made that possible was, using the success that we've gained from projects that were funded by Penn State, by the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority. We were able to get a grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission. So they are focused on Appalachia, and they have funding available to support projects like ours that have an economic impact, and they supported this initiative to expand to a larger area. This was a grant for the entire Beehive network, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. But first, I want to just touch on a few of these students that have really shined in this program, just to give you an idea about how they benefit from it. But here's one, John Nowakowski. In fact, if you're from Erie, you will probably recognize his name because he is the founder of Bayfront Glass in Erie. So while he was a founding member of this lab, and as he built that over the years, he made the decision to make an entrepreneurial leap and start a company. And he saw an opportunity in the area, which was glass recycling had ended in Erie. We're all familiar with that. And he said, I can do that. I've helped other entrepreneurs before. I've got the skills I need. He was at the time working on a master's in manufacturing management at Behrend, and serving as a leader in the Commons. And he took that knowledge and took it forward. But during that process, during the process in the lab, he was also doing a bunch of projects for other entrepreneurs, and he just learned enough, and gained enough self-confidence in his own skills that he was learning, to go for it. And he has. Another case is Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith recently graduated as well. His focus was a lot on industry projects. So you can see a few up there. You can see, if you're familiar with Erie, the one leg up dog toy. So he was very involved in that project. I just mentioned John was too. He started that project with one leg up, but he also developed, Aaron took that project on after John was graduated. And if you're familiar with the story, Lake Erie Rubber is that company. And they were just on Comeback City on the Discovery Channel, which is Glenn Stern's return to Erie to look at helping some companies. And so we were a very strong element of their move into dog toys at the time, which at the time was very needed for that company. We developed the first products that they did. And I'll tell you a bit about how Edinburgh was involved in that project in a little bit. Uh, so this, so Aaron also learned a lot in working with companies on very hardcore engineering questions. So he worked with Zurn. He's worked with Berry Plastics in Erie. But he also ultimately developed his own product, which you can see right behind my head on the screen, which is a nice little bowl for, say, in the back of your seat of your car for your kids to eat snacks while also watching a movie without making a horrible mess. So he released that product. It is for sale. You can buy it. And that's just a wonderful story of a student taking some initiative. Eli is the last case I'll talk about, and he is still in the lab. And it's an interesting story because he is a mechanical engineering major, but he, as a process, as a consequence of working in the lab, in the Innovation Commons, he's developed tons of Industry 4.0 skills. He's done a lot of 3D scanning with Zurn technologies, with technology that for the company Zurn, and he's done some great design. And he ultimately got a job offer, a permanent career job offer, his junior year because of some of this work that he was doing. And he'll be graduating soon and moving on to that job. He's already working there all the time. Very cool project. So I wanted to provide some sort of idea about if this is working or not. I mean, other than project specific, and it is. We've done over 215 projects at this point. 110 of those have been product development. So this is a very constant flow of projects that we're going through. Over 160 entrepreneurs. There's been patent applications, you can see. Companies that have been started, mostly startups, just trying to get off the ground. Now, I want to mention that leveraged dollars leveraged up there, that's money that came into or was invested in Erie as a result of this. So grants that came in from outside, donations that were made as a result, companies that have invested in things that we made possible as a result of this work, and including all of those things, that's actually lowballing the number a little bit. So this isn't money that we spent necessarily. It's money that was invested in this community as a result of our work, and that's conservative at this point. So I mentioned the Beehive Network, and this is important. Working on the success of the Innovation Commons and the success of the collaboration between the universities trying to find ways to help each other, we have developed what is now called the Northwest Pennsylvania Innovation Beehive Network. This is what I was mentioning before. It's the way our universities work together. It's what the Appalachian Regional Commission and even the Economic Development Administration has funded. And it is a hive of activity. This project involves the Erie County Library System, Gannon University, Mercyhurst University, Edinburgh University, and Behrend. And the essential concept, as you can see here, is an idea will come in from the public, someone who's got an idea, who wants to pursue it. Sometimes that comes in through the library. We want that space, or we really were interested in the library being an open funnel for projects and for people, a place where people can go where they feel comfortable, and where they can play, essentially, where they can have fun with ideas until they've got an idea that they really want to push on, and where they can get tons of referential help from the library. They have a lot of good knowledge there. And then they come into the network. So the network, I've told you about what we do as a part of that network already. Edinburgh does branding and marketing, and I mentioned One Leg Up Dog Toys. That was their brand that they developed originally from the Edinburgh University's Beehive. Mercyhurst University does business intelligence, so market research in similar areas of intel. And Gannon does a lot of business planning. They do some real analysis of your business, the ways that you can, looking at your finance and how that compares to other organizations that are doing similar things, looking at your fundraising, helping you with a pitch deck, that sort of thing. We also interact with a lot of other organizations, and that is part of what we call a no wrong door approach to entrepreneurship and the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Erie. You can't knock on the wrong door in this ecosystem. So if you wind up at Behrend, we will help you find every bit of help that you can get. And we will make sure that even if we can't help at all, we'll make sure that you are put in touch with and make a complete connection with someone who can help you. And the goal at the end of all of this, like any sort of entrepreneurial ecosystem, is to develop business ideas from just their birth to having them fully armed to go to a company, an organization like Ben Franklin Technology Partners, or 1855 Capital or Blue Tree, someone who can help them fund it, or perhaps go and find an industry partner for manufacturing. So I'm going to gloss over this. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend too much time with all these words on the screen, but I just wanted to focus on a couple of real milestones, give you an idea about the timeline, and then move on to look at some of the specific projects. So this all started way back with funding from ECHR and Invent Penn State that I mentioned before, back in 2014, 2015. We opened the Commons in 2016, and then our first patent for a client was awarded just 1 year later. So it's a pretty fast startup at the beginning, although it felt terribly slow. It did actually get rolling to productivity relatively quickly. And then the Appalachian Regional Commission and the EDA jumped in and said, we like what we're doing. Here's some money, get started on the Beehive network concept. So later I have a product in here called the Fast Framer. I'll tell you about in a minute. That was released onto the market. ARC came back and funded us again. We got an additional round of funding from ECHR, and recently we hit our 200 projects mark, which I think is a great landmark for the organization. A few projects, and I have a lot of words on these screens, so if you ever want to pause when you're looking at the video, you can read through it. But this project from a gentleman named Jason Wilcuch in Erie, the Fast Framer, seemed like a very obvious project to me when he brought it up. He said it holds boards in place on a wall so that you can put a screw in and then measure to the next one, pick it up, move it over. One of these has to exist, but it didn't. And so we were able to go through iterative design process with the students. He developed the product. He patented the product with our students named as co-inventors. And ultimately, he sold intellectual property to a manufacturer in Northeast who was mass producing the product. So he was able to go from idea in a napkin sketch through product development with the students in the laboratory, and that was substantial. There was a lot of redesign that the students helped with to exit in under a year on that project. Another one, this gentleman needed some, I'm focusing on this because it's got some electronic components I mentioned. So gentleman wanted an automatic golf club head cleaner that we were able to develop for him. He started a business from that. This gentleman's a retired police officer, and he wanted a mobile, portable, there's a better word, portable barricade that would light up. We were able to develop that for him. So it's a pod, it comes apart, it assembles like a tent, lights, and very easy to fit in the trunk of a say a squad car. One One other project I'll mention, this is Wes Hall. He worked with Hank Grego on an idea to develop a system for tightening shoelaces that doesn't require you to bend over. So you can put this device in your shoe, drop shoe on the floor, stick your foot in the shoe, and tighten the laces without having to bend over. So there's a substantial alleviation of some medical challenges that people have when they're undergoing surgery, or simply have challenges bending over. So interesting project, also patented. I did want to mention a bit about projects with industry. So one very interesting story is this one. So Berry Global is an Erie company. They make bottle caps at extremely high rate, thousands per minute on every line, many lines. Bottle caps meaning the ones that go on Pepsi bottles and Coke bottles and stuff like that. And they just wanted to experiment with us. They didn't know what they had in mind. We didn't know what we had in mind. And one of the projects that we came up with was to replace some of the very expensive parts that are all custom made on their automated machines with 3D printed parts instead, because the difference in price was literally $1,000 per part to $3 per part. And so we worked with them, and we were able to prove that concept out. So yes, they are replacing parts in their machines with 3D printed ones, fraction of the cost. And we learned in the process with experimenting with them that it is good that our parts that we 3D print break. So when these lines of extremely fast moving bottle caps jam, they can break our parts that we put in, or they can break very expensive parts that cost $10,000 a piece. So our $3 part breaks first, which is good. So that was an interesting learning experience for them, for us, and it gave us a way to really take a technology like 3D printing and give it an industrial application. So we are moving forward with other projects with Industry 4.0 involving sensors and data analytics with Berry. We're very excited to work with them. I mentioned One Leg Up already. So I'm going to gloss over this other than adorable pictures of dogs that are totally necessary for a presentation like this. This is also a slide not meant to be read. I just wanted to show that we're getting some attention. So people are paying attention to what we're doing. They're behind us and they're excited. And so it's not just my excitement about doing this project. It spreads. And so these are just some media, titles from some media sources. But we've been getting asked questions by people as far away as Utah, how we did it. So part of it is just, how do you develop an innovation center like this? Sure, but there's a lot of innovation centers. They also want to know how you're working with universities in your region that you compete with. So we've solved that puzzle. This Beehive network, it works. It's a great collaboration, and that's something that we're glad to share. We'll probably publish a few things on that eventually, so that so it's more widely spread, and in the education community. But we found this way that 4 competing universities can work together on one project and all benefit from it, but also it's a great service to the community. So everyone is winning on this equation. So how can you get involved? Here's where I ask you for things. Project referrals are super valuable to us. Most of the best projects that we get are referrals from other organizations. They're from companies. They're from people who are in this entrepreneurial community or in the industrial community, who want to share, or rather, who know people who are developing things that are exciting and know that they need help. So refer people to us. And I want to particularly ask right now that if you know people who are looking to develop apps, particularly Android, please contact me about that, because we are looking for projects right now that are app development projects. So we're not looking for making the next Facebook. That's something that requires a large staff that you have control over to manage an enormous project. But smaller projects are very interesting to us. That is a service that we have. Another way you can do it is hire our students. We have a couple students right now that are looking for work that are extremely experienced. And if you're interested in hiring an engineer with the skill set that I'm talking about, soft skills, business skills, entrepreneurial mindset, uh, uh, extraordinarily broad engineering experience, problem solving. These all almost sound cliche now, but this is legit. These students have it. And I have a couple right now that are looking for positions. Some are graduated already. Looking to move into a different field. So please contact me. Lastly, Penn State University has a fund in place to match donations to an endowment to keep this program going in perpetuity. So this would be providing the cost to keep this program running forever at no cost to individuals. So it keeps the barrier very low for entrepreneurs who don't have funding to be able to do this themselves or hire out for it. And that is up to $1 million. So if your organization, for example, donated $1 million to this program, Penn State would match up to that amount. We do have our first donor, and I'm not allowed to say who that is just yet, but we do have our first donor to that fund. So that fund is getting started. People believe in it. Please consider it. Also, I'm working with the idea of sponsoring a student through the Commons. So what does that mean? We don't know yet, except to say that it would be a great way to build a relationship with a student, help guide them help work with them while they're in college, help them to work on projects that benefit skill sets that you need, and provide a little scholarship. I think this is an opportunity for companies to build a good relationship with a student, or to just support the Commons in a general sense and provide work for others. So very interested in working with people to indeed develop the way that works. So your ideas are always very helpful in developing new programs and processes. So donations of equipment are also very, very well appreciated. I want to say thank you particularly to Zern for giving us donations that have supported students, student hours, equipment, for also providing a piece of equipment on our site that we could use per projects, not just with them, but with the whole community. Also, Plasticos for providing a piece of equipment that is also an enormous, has enormous potential in the machine. So providing machines is another way to kind of make an impact on the way that the lab can provide services. So thank you to those people. Finally, how do you contact us? We have an email. It goes to all of the students. It goes to me also. You can call us directly in the laboratory. You can find us on social media, or literally you can just knock and bite. So, okay, maybe not now. Now would be a bad time to show up and knock on the door. But as soon as this mess is over, come up and knock on the door, and we would just love to have you come in and learn what we do. In the meantime, please virtually knock at any time. Very interested in your projects and ideas. So with that, I think I will conclude and take questions. I'm sure that I glossed over some things that probably I should have spent more time on. So let's hear some of your ideas. But thank you very much for your time and your interest.
Well, Jake, that was very interesting. I have to say I work very closely with Jake, and it's just a pleasure. It's exciting to see some of the things that are going on at Innovation Commons. There is a link in the chat for where you can go ahead and make donations if you'd like to. You can also call our office. There'll be information after this session if you like that as well. I'm reading some of the questions for those of us outside the Erie area, but may have an idea, concept. Can we get help from Innovation Commons? And I know the answer to that, but Jake, go ahead.
The answer is yes. So we have worked with people who are outside the area. Our focus is regional, right? So about a 100-mile radius is our focus area. Um, but we are very open to considering projects from other locations. Part of that equation is in considering a project outside of our area is looking at the benefit to students that are working on it. So is this an opportunity that really benefits their education or their career? Those are projects that we will certainly consider as at a higher priority from further away, or building new relationships with companies and startups in other regions. There's a lot of benefit to that outside of just regional economic growth. Um, so it fits our mission very well.
And Jake, just a kind of a question for me. I know that we've been working on some projects kind of the future, like Industry 4.0. I don't think you touched on that too much, but can you talk a little bit about the plans for the future and maybe Industry 4.0?
Yes, I can, and yes, I did gloss over that way too quickly. In fact, so we are in the process of Industry 4.0. I should define briefly because um, it's, it sounds like a buzzword, and it is a little bit of a buzzword, but it's a real thing. So what we're looking at is the way things are kind of shifting in almost an era of industry. And when we talk about Industry 4.0, we're talking about new technologies that are really changing the way that industry works with each of these point O's. That's sort of what we're talking about. So in this case, we're talking about sensors. So for example, on machines, but all connected sensors, right? So not just a sensor that reads out 20 degrees right now, but one that tells a computer that's far away that it's 20 degrees. But also integrating those sensors with technologies where it's interpreting that data. So there may be a smart computer program that says that temperature is too low, and that tells me that something down here is breaking. I better order that, and I better tell a technician that they need to repair that when it arrives. So what we want is a sort of smart system that can detect failures in advance of failure and then even follow through on steps beyond that. So that's a part of Industry 4.0. Other elements of that are additive manufacturing. So I mentioned 3D printing. That is a portion of Industry 4.0. And virtual reality, augmented reality solutions. But the idea is really this technology barrier that is increasing automation, increasing the intelligence of systems, and really helping humans out through robotic and automation measures. So really working with humans and for humans to make the industry work better and faster. And what we're doing in that space right now is developing an Industry 4.0 laboratory at the Innovation Commons. So there's a room right next door. And we want to be able to do data analytics, sensors, some level of robotics, and training in that area. So we want to be able to train companies on implementing Industry 4.0 elements of Industry 4.0 techniques into their own factories. So that is progressing right now. In fact, we are looking for companies that are interested in getting in on that through the process of donations and or perhaps partnering directly. Very interested in that. We have some people jumping in right now who are providing a lot of technical expertise, but we're also looking for financial support to build that lab. But that is getting started right now.
That's pretty exciting. Jake, we have another question. Can you talk about patent rights and how that affects what you do?
Yeah, so Penn State policy for this particular laboratory and in a lot of general sense is that if you are the inventor, you being someone from the community, could be anyone, you're going to own the intellectual property for our projects. So you are the sole owner unless you decide that you want to share it with the students, that ownership. Now, of course, if the students add intellectual property to the product, by law, they would be named as co-inventors on the patent, but not necessarily co-owners. That is your decision. So you maintain ownership of that. And that, I think, it enables a lot of people to have some comfort with working with us. Penn State will not own the product when it's finished. We want you to own it.
Another question, what are some of the challenges that you have to deal with? Do you collaborate with other departments on campus with regard to clients?
Yes, we do. So that is really flexibility that we've got. We would love, I mean, we frequently just have a need that we can't meet with our own skill set, and we will just go and find someone who does. So one of the nice things about being in a university setting is being able to go to a professor and say, "You're the genius on this subject. You tell me what I've done wrong, or what's a good approach for this. What's a good material to use for this product? Should I injection mold this thing, or should I, do some other manufacturing technique? Maybe just 3D print them forever. Who knows?" So that expertise is available. We've also worked with the business school, doing some market research occasionally through coursework, and we're looking at any way that we can work with the other departments that we can, and we love it when they jump in. Every now and then I would be like, "How can I help?" That's fantastic for us too. Very excited about that. I have a question here from John Nowakowski, and they're running pretty good, John. They're running pretty good. Big One is doing fantastic. That's John was asking, how are my machines running? He says they're doing great.
If there aren't any other questions, thank you, Jake. This is very interesting. Even though I know a good bit about Innovation Commons, I do appreciate hearing your presentations. So thank you very much. To all of you that have participated, thank you for being here today. We hope that you found it informative. If you'd like to support Innovation Commons or engage with us regarding product development, we have added contact information in the chat. Our next Rise and Shine webinar will take place on Thursday, March 4th, and it will focus on the plastics industry from research to recycling. Thanks again. Have a great day and be well.